In such a system, a node should also perhaps be available to remove a message, to tell this number doesn't, I don't serve this message, this message should be removed from your lists. So you also need remove messages. You might think that it costs a header, but it really doesn't, because if you do it round-based, you can send the header to remove. No, it shouldn't be that long, it's just, for instance, a byte that says this is the remove message. And then you add all the IDs and numbers, all of that. So all those that need to be removing during that minute that are coming to remove the sender, and also all the offers and everything, so you can clump them together with one header. So it's basically this is the cost. That's not really a cost, but it's just a little compared to this.
That's assuming that remove is a common operation.
Yeah, but also
in a lot of cases it probably wouldn't be.
Offer could be the same thing. I offer this to you. So offer, that's 1 or 2 byte header.
You could make that a function of the
yeah, that's
the
a function call. That's a function call.
If I've done n rounds, then just automatically remove it. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, you can do that too.
So
we publish it later on. Just
by the round, then you know to evict.
Many peer-to-peer systems in their distributed hash table, if you push something into in the ring message, after 2 hours they drop it. So you have to reinsert it in less than 2 hours, or 1 hour is difference. But after 1 or 2 hours, they just drop it. So you don't remove anything. You don't tell them to remove it; it just disappears. And that also works fairly well. So yeah, that was a little about that.
I think that works also for the storage in the network problem, so that the network automatically cleans itself instead of to say, hey, this information is important, keep it.
Fair enough, yes. Actually, we could go into that now, because I think it's pretty much next on the list. Yeah, right now I can't think of more things in broadcasting. Yeah, well, I talked about the slotted broadcasting, right? Yeah. And I talked about throttling, jump caps and everything like that. So that's also kind of different kinds of broadcasting. So there's many approaches to broadcasting. You have to use the right one in the right situation. But yeah, we can go on to storing in the network, perhaps. Or is there any more questions about anything broadcasting related? No? Okay. So, yeah, storing in the network. We have some of the problems when it comes to trust networking, or for instance, I want to publish a website on the peer-to-peer network, but my home computer isn't online when I'm not at home. Or I don't want to have it online all the time. But I want the website to be always available anyway. Then I need to push my website out on the network and have it stored there. And that actually used to be a hard problem, perhaps still is. Because Freenode, for instance, Freenode. They used to model that where anyone could push anything onto the network, and then use some fairly weird kind of random routing on top of that. That was really interesting. And the routing part it worked fairly well, but it was very, very inefficient. So I don't recommend that kind of routing. But they also pushed the data onto the network, and everything looked. When I looked at it the first time, I thought, "Oh, that looks nice." And then after 2 years or so, I realized that now I have the tools to actually investigate these elements. So I sat down with paper and pencil and went through them and realized, well, people will push any amount of data on the network and it will be too full. I could put up 2 nodes in Freenode, one publishing data, the other consuming data, and all the nodes in between will start storing our data. And we can also push data in the other direction. And then we could connect them in some spots and just fill the network. And that actually happened, but not on malicious, evil nodes. That was just people publishing too much data, because of course it was so convenient to do that. They were even pushing their own backups onto the network and stuff like that. So they actually did that, opened 2 nodes, or they asked a friend, can you download my backup so it gets stored in the network? Because it only got stored if someone started the download. So they pushed all gigabytes of data onto Freenet, and well, it got clogged. So we can't do it like that. We have to have some kind of incentives. Well, we have some different algorithms for that, and I only know one of them because that's the only one I really believe in. And that one hasn't been tested yet. So I haven't even run the simulations. I don't know if it works, but I think it will work. It's not my own invention, by the way. Oh, well, I don't need whiteboard for that. Basically, you talk to a random node out there, anyone, and says to him, I want a storage agreement with you. Can you store 1 megabyte for me and I store 1 megabyte for you? 1 megabyte today, that's almost nothing, so it's you can always do that as a little teaser. And they store it for each other. And then you wait a couple of days, and during those days, you ask some other node to check if he's still sharing that megabyte that you gave to. Because storing usually is storing so everyone can get it, not storing for your own purposes, but storing for publishing purposes. So you ask other nodes to check it for you, every question, and they can also check it when you're offline, of course, because the purpose is the data should be there when you're offline. And then after some days, he seems to be honoring the agreement, and the other nodes will check you, of course, in the same manner. Then you can tell, well, you seem to behave well the last week. Should we up our agreement? And they can go up to, say, 8 megabytes or something. And then every 5 days or so, they can, whatever is the proper period, we don't know yet, they can up the agreement. After a month or so, perhaps you have 1 gigabyte storage agreement. And you do that with a whole bunch of other nodes. And then you have enough storage agreements. And you can't flood the network, because if you don't honor the agreements, they will dump your data after a couple of days. After a couple of weeks, depends on how long you're allowed to be offline.
I guess the definition of what it means to honour the agreement is the tricky bit, because if you're going to be offline, then that can't be just enough to say you're not honouring an agreement.
No,
the whole point
When you
of it-
factor that into the
you ask someone.
you would factor that in, right?
Yeah, you have to. It has to be available for a certain amount of time, a period percentage.
That's like going up in the agreement saying
You have to have
yes,
an SLA.
you've been behaving well.
You have to have an
Means
SLA
being
for your offering.
Yeah.
But it can be, I know my node is online, say, 1 day a week. So you can find other nodes that also are only online 1 day a week, on average. And then they can realize that we will be equal partners.
That's a fair agreement, right?
Yeah. We can have actually several things that we have to take into
One
account.
day a week may have to store like 7 times as much to equate with one who's like, well, I'll store one second, but I'll always be available.
We have several things that we can put together in a point system with how much you're up online, what's your, perhaps with the speed you can serve it, how much you store, and one more thing. Since you need other nodes to check the agreement for you, that's work. Because if you ask lots of nodes to help you check it, that's a cost. So you can actually use your storage partner, those you already have as friends, to do checking of your other partners. So you can take that into the agreement too. So you can, I store files for you and I do checks for you. Well, I actually, and also just store them, I publish them for you. So you can take all these things in a agreement, and also, I think you said that, I'm a bit ashamed that I didn't think of that myself. Because if someone checks for me, I can't know if he actually does the checks. So the one who's checked can also tell me if people have requested, who has requested. For instance, after some time I can ask him, did that node contact you and download any data of you lately? And he said, yeah, he did, or no, he didn't. So I can know if those can tell each other if they're honest. So you have to, this check system is a little messy to build, but it seems doable. And I think that's the only really good way to do storing in the network. But there might be other approaches, of course. Well, there is another approach that we discussed yesterday. I think, was it you? You can actually use your real-world friends. For instance, I can make storage agreements with you in person, but most people won't do that. Because it's too, well, it takes a lot of work to get enough many friends, so your data will be always online. But you could also, if you have something similar like Facebook, where the system can learn who actually is your friend, then you can automatically do storage agreements with those ones, because they are probably willing to share with you. And that means you can get rid of all those evil nodes. So if the system is going to take your actual friends, they can use that too. So there are several approaches. But something like that. But it hasn't been tested properly yet, as far as I know. Perhaps someone has done it the last few years, but so we don't know how well it works. We don't know how to calibrate it properly yet. But that's storing in the network. Anyone read more about it? Or?
Yeah, like by putting a little burden on someone who becomes a friend, you're also improving the quality of the whole thing, because you aren't friends with someone you don't even know. So.
But so the only, and that's also for non-storage, for other kind of work. You have to be, you help me, I help you. That's the only sane way to do it.
You could actually use social networks, like if you wanted to your friends to carry some data for you, you just post the hash as a comment, and then you traverse the social network to find the comments that have been liked or whatever, and then you accept that hash and you get that data and then you host that data.
Yeah.
Or could you drive it through currency?
Sorry?
Could you drive it through currency?
Currency.
Yeah.
You mean like bit
Your
stars?
money. I personally don't like it. I mean, people have suggested that a lot of times.
Okay.
But that means you have to add some kind of digital currency into your computer, and that means a hacker can get your money from you.
Yeah.
So I don't like storing money in my computer. So personally, I'm against using any kind of money scheme. Because hackers, they have botnets, they hack people's computers all the time and get whatever they have.
Yeah, but
So
that only has value in when you're on the network. It doesn't have it's not like a Bitcoin that I'm suggesting.
yeah.
It's sort of like a network currency. So if I store data for somebody, that gives me
Credit.
credits
Storage
to go and
is
store
currency.
other
I
things
mean,
on.
you can initiate the network with a fixed amount of currency or something like that. That's issued by the
storage is
creator of the network. So it has a network internal currency
Mm.
that has a limited supply. Yes. It might.
Well, the network is finite, so it does have a limited supply.
So,
The network is finite, so it does have a limited
yeah,
supply.
finite amount. Yeah. So you have to gain things, performing services. You gain those coins, and then you can pay other service for that. And then the system, of course, has to understand that the number of nodes increases, but the money doesn't increase. So the price of each service must be cheaper and cheaper over time. That's how I would do it in this case, at least.
You know, make it simpler, just make it a function of the number of bytes you have available to store. And it doesn't matter if the number increases,
So
storage increases.
Yeah, that's actually...
Measure in gigabytes.
Yeah, but I mean,
So I want to join the network, I've got a RAID system with 10 terabytes, so I have 10 terabytes worth of coin. on
well, how
offer.
can you prove that you actually have 10 terabytes to share? You can't prove that. You can't just issue coins because you claim to have 10 terabytes.
Yeah, but it quickly becomes obvious that you can't store up to 10 terabytes. So
But
you
who
become
should
untrusted.
check that and tell that you actually are storing that? A friend?
Well, you can
you
try
might
by
lie.
storing a file.
Sorry?
You could try through using the storage system.
Yeah, but still,
Self-checking
the one
to
checking
an
you
extent.
will be a friend, and that friend can be lying too. So you actually have to have a true digital currency that you can't fake. So it's hard to measure if the node is actually having all that data.
Or you just don't start off with an assumption of trust. Trust is established over time.
Yeah, but that's
By proving you have the storage you say you have.
Yeah, but that's the I store for you and you store for me kind of trust.
Exactly.
Or I check for you and you store for me or something like that. Yeah. But that's the reciprocal agreements, right?
Mm.
Yeah. But as you said, you can have a fixed amount of money in the network and use that to buy and sell services.
Mm.
But then what I'm just meant, what people would forget that is if the network grows, you can't add more money easily because the money is added from the creator of the network and he might not be around anymore. Of course, we can use like some Bitcoin doesn't really use that, but other currencies is where you use CPU power, CPU cycles to produce money.
Mm.
Bitcoin just has a little just to limit the speed at which Bitcoin is spread. But Bitcoin is there's actually a fixed amount of money in the network. But you can make CPU-based work, and that's more like hash cache and stuff like that. And that merely slows things down and is costly. So for network storage and things like that, I don't think it would be sane to use it in that case. I can't see how I could apply it in any same manner.
What do you mean Bitcoin is not CPU based? It's, of course it is.
For mine,
Yeah.
The money already is
it's
limited
a
from
small
start.
function of it.
You just use. I'm
No,
not an
no,
expert
it's
on
not
Bitcoin.
limited. It's going to be limited, but it's increasing.
Yeah, but to issue new money, you have to spend CPU cycles.
Yeah.
But it's still limited amount.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I'm not an expert on Bitcoin, so I might be.
okay.
But at least there is one approach. You insert a certain amount of money from start, and as the number of users increase, when it's actual digital money, then the value of each coin will be higher, of course, because more people want it. But on in other approach, if you use this to buy and sell services inside a peer-to-peer network, that would mean that when more nodes need to use it, the network have to understand that now we're more nodes, and now we have to lower the cost for each service because more people will need to part of this money to supply and buy services. And then that actually comes down to a nasty problem. Then you have to know how many nodes are there in the network.
Well, not if you use a market approach, where
Yeah,
to offer services, you offer them at a rate, and then the purchasers can say, well, I'm not going to purchase that because it's too much.
exchange though.
Yeah, so if you don't end up not no one buying from you, you
have to
lower
lower.
the price until people start buying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might work. Then you don't need to know the size of the network.
You need to know the size of the market, though.
Yeah, after then you
Still
can
need
calculate
to
the
know the
approximate
size of
size.
something.
Yeah.
No, you don't, because it's all about whether it's about affordability.
If the
I wanna
market
buy a
is too
service.
small, it makes it an unviable market, so that wouldn't be interesting in terms of supply and demand, or for use to trade services.
This is just for service internal to the network, storing, checking, stuff like that. And also open anonymous tunnels, perhaps, and stuff like that. Yeah, that might work.
It would be an interesting approach, peer-to-peer
Well,
automatic market approach to selling and buying
Yeah,
services.
that might work. This means the prices will fall until everyone gets to sell a decent amount of services, enough to be able to buy what they need. So that's kind of, yeah, that might work. But I haven't spent much time on that, so I'm just selling the little I know about it. Yeah. Anything you want to say about that? Okay, trust in the peer-to-peer networks. Or it's lunchtime, perhaps. It's 1 o'clock.
That looks like lunchtime to me.
I think it's lunchtime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
It's lunch o'clock. Hmm?
I didn't exactly get what you said with the comment like hash thing.
Oh, so what could happen is like, so you have your, you have like a crawling system or something like that set up that kind of goes out and finds the social networks, people you know, and if they post something, like a hash that matches like, or like a comment with a keyword and a hash. Keyword says like, hey, I want to store this, and this is the hash for my data. Then you can go to the place where that data is stored, find that hash, grab that, and then store it. And then so you're going out and finding things to store based on your, your social networks. Like, so you're always, I mean, that's just one idea. But I mean, there's a bunch of ways that you could leverage a social graph to figure out what either you want to store or who wants things stored.
Yeah.
That might be kind of interesting.
Yeah. So, what is like an example? If you could measurement of what's important to store.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like so if somebody gets a bunch of +1s on Google Plus, then like, or like, hey, I want to store this, and then people will like start +1 on it, and then if it gets past like 10 +1s or whatever, then you choose to store it. Or if it's on Twitter, if it gets retweeted enough times, like, or
But on Twitter, you could say like, if I follow you, I store your data.
sure,
Like
yeah,
that would be an agreement.
totally. Yeah, in fact, you could totally abuse Twitter to like set up like a whole network of like storage. Like, create a Twitter account for my peer that's going to store stuff, and then people who follow it would know when I tweet stuff that I want to store it. I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, but I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can establish like networks that are piggybacking on top of existing social networks.
I'm thinking about like writing an encrypted Facebook. Every message is encrypted and the system is not like that knows.
Right. I often thought like there's a lot of ways that you can use like you claim something and like all those commenting systems on websites.